All right, we're live. Welcome, guys. This is we take this in a very chill manner. We have a few things to go over. We'll start with slides, and then we'll get into some real world examples if we have time. I don't want to waste too much time on those, and then we'll get into Q&A. But this will. I get so distracted by chat, but we're live. The recording is going to go up after this for everyone that was wondering. So just wanted to preface with that. For anyone that has support questions, so support related, which is technical, please keep that to the support desk. There is a link inside of your dashboard when you log into Solopreneur Sprints or Digital Economics Masters. We have both of those in here. And if you do not have login, because I know some people, they get the emails for the calls, but they didn't log in initially, there's a lot more to go over inside of the actual dashboard. So if you don't know where your login is, just search your email, because if you got the other email, you should have gotten the login email. So just search like DanCo login, and you should be able to find it, be able to log in. It was also included in the email, so you can log in there, or if you don't have a password, you can press forgot password. But let's go straight into it, because the slides helps me stay a bit more structured with what I'm actually saying. So as you can see, if you've gone through any of the previous recordings that are inside of the Solopreneur Sprints dashboard, you'll see that this is kind of what we do with every initial call. We go over the slides and then get into other things. So this, with each call that we've done in Solopreneur Sprints, it's always had the same structure for a one-person business. So that's something to take note of, is that with this one, we're just going over a different perspective so that you can understand it on a deeper level, both branding and content, and how the two work together and how to get eyes on your content so you can actually grow. But in these calls, the 4 calls that you have with this September sprint, we're not going to be going over any of the Notion templates, okay? We went over those in the 8 previous recordings. So those will be very helpful, and that's kind of like a bonus addition that you get with this sprint, so you can go through those on your own time and really leverage everything that was included in past sprints, right? And so for this one, we're going to take the same approach, but I want to kind of present this idea of social media as a digital society. And so what I mean by that is the creator economy is the economy, and then social media as itself is kind of a new society where people interact digitally. And so the way that I like to frame it is that your personal brand, or even just a brand, I like to go with personal brand or being a creator, even if you don't identify as that. Like if you're a marketer or you're a writer or you have a business owner, a personal brand is you getting online and being a member of this digital society. And then anything you do, if you're a marketer, writer, whatever it is that you create or have the value you have to offer, your personal brand is a good vessel for that, and arguably the most potent vessel to do that, simply because people crave human interaction. I'm sure you can go to, I know most of you know Notion, the software. If you go to their social media, you're not really following them for any form of value they're giving. You're really just following them for updates or certain things related to the brand. They don't get very much engagement. But creators, on the other hand, you really form a connection with them, and they can sell arguably more because they have that personal touch. They have that human touch there. So we're going to talk about the importance of creating a character or your personal brand, but seeing it as a character to make writing and speaking seamless, and then how to create a narrative or reality that your readers can identify with and follow, and then how to apply the purpose, path, priority framework to everything you do, especially brand and content. This call is going to be focused mainly on brand. The next call is going to be focused on content, but they play together a lot. So the agenda, first, theory. We're going to go over some slides for big picture understanding. Next is practice. This is also going to be in the slides, but it's pretty much the simple action steps you need to take to like break down something that's palatable so that you can actually do it on a daily basis and see progress over time. And then 3 examples. If we have time, I don't see it as too necessary for this call because I do want to save some room for Q&A. And so with Q&A, I've done enough of these sprints to know that it can get absolutely insane. So I want to preface here that please keep the Q&A or the questions to the Q&A channel. So when you're in the chat tab on the side, you will see the Q&A tab. Go there and drop questions. Now, please do not ask personal questions or anything that is not related to the material that is being discussed, because that just, it creates a lot of friction and bouncing back and forth between topics. And I can do other Q&As if you want to know personal stuff about me. I don't think it's that important right now. But Joey will be answering some questions in there as time goes along. Joey, just so we're on the same page, don't answer personal questions. I'm not going to answer personal questions later on. And yes, so keep it to that, and we'll get started. Oh, another thing is I would highly recommend taking notes with this. So in terms of the Q&A, like, we shouldn't see any questions for the first 10 minutes. Like, you should be taking notes. You should be paying attention. You should be thinking about the questions that you want to ask to fill the gaps that I wasn't able to fill with the actual curriculum itself. So with that said, we'll get started. Pull out a notebook or open a notes tab on your computer, and let's start. So your character, we're starting here. The first thing to understand here, let's start on the right, because I feel like this is the most important part, is the why behind it. So I know Joey turned me on to this book by the guy, I forgot his name, but it's called The Alter Ego Effect. I've never read it, but I can speak for the power of kind of tapping into a character in, like, not only online, but in certain situations of your life. So people like Kobe Bryant had Black Mamba as a character that they could tap into during game time. I know some people, like, they don't specifically label this character, but when they go home to their family, or when they're with friends, or when they're with someone else, they have this character in mind that they want to play that is going to lead to the most conducive outcomes in that specific situation. And so the thing with this is that even public speakers do this, and even people online do this. I do this a lot without even recognizing it, and that's when I write my best. Because if you just go in and you don't really have a frame that you're operating from, which we're going to talk about as like creating your narrative, the words kind of get jumbled. I've experienced this on podcasts myself, where I'm trying to pull thoughts together and create something valuable to say or even to write, and it just doesn't come out clear unless I have a specific goal or vision in mind that I'm trying to lead people towards, or that help frame the things that I'm trying to say and help frame the questions that people are asking me, or help frame the problems that I'm going through. So that's the importance of a character, is that it allows you to adopt this mindset that lets you write and speak better in anything that you do, or just create better in anything that you do. This isn't only limited to writing content, but creating products, writing emails, speaking on YouTube videos, going on podcasts, everything. So the first thing, now going to the left side, is that everyone is putting on an act. So when you hear someone say that someone isn't being authentic, you think of them like an actor in a movie, right? Like, they're not being their true selves. And I call bullshit on this. This is kind of like, obviously in Hollywood movies, they're playing a character or playing an act because that's their job, right? But you aren't being inauthentic when you're doing this. And I would argue that you're being the most authentic, because authenticity is doing what you want to do regardless of other people's opinions. It's not conforming to other people's opinions. So if you create a character that you want to be and you want to play, that's arguably the most authentic thing you can do, in my eyes at least. And
then
it brings back the example of what?
Are you showing slides?
Yes.
I don't see them.
Can you see it?
Maybe that's because I'm a presenter.
Can everyone else see? Okay,
my bad.
They can see the slides.
I'm a co-presenter, so that's
You're all
probably
good.
why. My bad.
Okay. So you act differently around everyone, right? No matter what it is, where as I said, if you go home to your family or you're with your friends, you act differently. There are certain things you're going to say and you're not going to say, depending on who you're around. You're not going to talk to your family like you would your friends. You're not going to talk to your friends like you would a business partner or someone that you're trying to reach out to land as a client, right? So this should be top of mind every time in the character that you create. And we're going to talk about this later. We're just discussing what the character actually is, and it's important. So the way that I've seen it work best for me, and the way that I see it working best for a lot of you, because you can create any character you want and start playing it or writing under that character online. But I like to think of my brand or my personal brand, the character that I display online, as the highest version of myself. It's the person that I'm working to become. And that frees up so much room to write and create content and create products around things that allow me to reach that next step, because it forces me to research, acquire skills, and grow into that person, right? So that's a great starting place, at least for now, is to think of who you want to become and treat that as your character, right? So on the right side here, again, it's like whenever you go to create content or create a product or do whatever it is, when you get stuck or you just don't have very many ideas, you need to like pick a problem, pick a goal, pick something that we're going to talk about in the content call next week, Thursday, and you ask, like, what would the highest version of myself do? Or in many cases, it's like the meme, what would Jesus do, right? And you'd be surprised how much this can actually free up mental space to create from when you get inspiration from something to create and then want to make it your own by viewing it from the lens of the highest version of yourself or the person that you want to become, right? This isn't only for content. This works well for anything. And I've written many tweets on this where it's like when you have an important decision to make, always consult your desired lifestyle or your ideal future or the ideal version of yourself, so that you're thinking long term and you're creating a much better solution or piece of content or value from that. And so a bad example here would be Liver King. If you don't know who Liver King is, watch a few videos on him. He's pretty much this big jack guy that was promoting this ancestral lifestyle. He was lying about taking steroids. Everyone knew it. He finally came clean, and now there's still more drama about him. But Liver King, he had a great brand and message that was helpful to people. But the thing is that he wasn't living in alignment with the character that he portrayed in real life, right? So he was lying, but you can study him and take what he did and apply it to yourself and hopefully act in alignment with the character and not completely lie about your steroid usage. But that's just one example of many that we'll go over. So your narrative is it's the perspective that your character has. So your narrative, just reading from this, consists of a shared goal that shapes how you perceive life itself. And it's the key to healthier relationships, business deals, writing and speaking, personal development, really anything. Like if you ask a relationships person that is good with like marriages or like couples therapy or something like that, the reason that arguments happen in these relationships is that they lose that shared narrative. They lose that shared goal that they're working towards. They don't have clarity on how they're going to reach the goal. They don't have the goal to frame how they view certain situations so they can come up with a solution, right? So when they aren't operating within that same perspective and they don't communicate that same perspective, then that's when arguments occur, and one person isn't leading, one person isn't following in whatever situation there's going to be, right? So the same holds true when you're building an audience, is that in order to attract readers or to attract followers, you need a narrative or a mission or something that you're leading people to, okay? And politicians and scammers, they exploit this aspect of human nature very well. Because people are attracted to people that share the same worldview or narrative that they want to join in on or that they believe in, right? That's the key word there, is that they believe in. And so politicians and scammers are trying to persuade people to adopt a narrative that isn't mutually beneficial in many cases, or it's manipulative because they're hiding certain things that are actually very important to know. So what you're trying to do is hopefully come up with a good narrative for your life. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? What are you doing today in order to get there? And how are you persuading people to see the value in adopting your narrative? Okay. And this is true for like religion, ideology, whatever it may be. But I would encourage you not to think of it as something that is bad, because all of that is subjective, where it takes some critical thinking to sit back and think, okay, who am I trying to attract to this narrative that I'm trying to create or lead people to? Is it actually beneficial to their lives? Is it beneficial to their lives? Is it worth persuading them to do what I'm doing over what they're doing? And I'll use like myself as an example, where I talk about business, self-improvement, philosophy, and other things. And so I'm trying to persuade the people that aren't doing much with their life, or are living an average life, or like the common marketing angle is that they hate their job. It's like, if they truly hate their job and they would benefit from starting a business or doing something else, then I'd like to believe that I'm doing a good thing by having them adopt my narrative and change their life, right? So that's what I'm getting at here, is don't create a narrative that is leading to destruction and evil. Create a narrative that is leading to creation and positivity and all of this good stuff that actually helps humanity, and then persuade people to get on board that, rather than the path that they're going down, which may be leading to destruction, evil, whatever negative term you want to assign to it. Okay. And the key point here is that humans are goal-oriented creatures, and that they like having that community with the shared goal. They like feeling as if they are part of something greater. That's their spirituality, right? That's the spiritual aspect of business, is having a narrative to work towards. And so with that, people just want to have a better life. They want to have clarity on how to get there, and they want to have something worth waking up for. Those three things, the framework that we're going to talk about now, is the key to almost every area of life, and it's no different for business. So going on to the next slide, the first thing in this purpose, path, priority framework to start to develop clarity on not only your brand, but everything that you do, is that your purpose is your North Star. It's a big, meaty goal it's a big, meaty goal to identify specific problems in your life. I'm great at typos, but that's exactly what it is you need that North Star. You need something big and irrational to develop vision, right? The way that I like to think of this in terms of a goal, or I guess the differentiator for me between a goal and purpose, is that a purpose is big and somewhat irrational. It's like kind of hard to achieve, but it gives you that vision. It gives you that drive. It gives you that motivation. When you think big and long term, that's a much more efficient fuel source than thinking very small. So let's say my purpose is to get absolutely jacked and shredded, just as an example off my head. And you can imagine the life that comes with that. You can have a vision around that you want to work towards. But then if you break it down into smaller goals to gain clarity, but let's say you only have that small goal of, I want to lose 10 pounds by the end of this month. That's not very motivating. There's no vision around that. You're not even going to see a noticeable change in your physique. You want to aim far into a future transformation for yourself and the people that you're leading toward that, so that it's attractive not only to you, but to the people that you are attracting to your brand and leading people towards. So that's the first part of not only framing your character and what you talk about and the perspective from which you write certain things. Like when you see a good piece of content online and you're like, I want to make that my own because that hits hard for me, you frame it under your purpose. You frame it under the big, meaty goal that you are trying to solve, and then you write from that lens. This is how you write and speak endlessly on certain things, is by having this purpose for your brand top of mind, okay? So this goal or purpose should fall under one or all of the following, which is health, wealth, relationships, happiness. I'm sure all of you guys have seen this before in my content or maybe other places, but these are the eternal markets in business, but they're also just the main domains of your life, right? And that crossover is important to notice because they're also the most high performing topics in content and when you create a product, because everyone can resonate with these domains because the problems within them are real and tangible and relatable. Okay. So I like to think of it as everyone's umbrella niche is self-improvement that houses health, wealth, relationships, happiness. And you can niche down within those if you'd like. But I personally think that brands should evolve over time. If you want to start with one that you're super interested in, like health, that's perfect. But over time, it may get boring, or you want to pursue that next stage of development and you want to evolve further, then you can go into wealth. You can start writing and understanding and creating products and other things to not only help yourself reach that goal faster, but to help others go along with you to where it is that you're going. So if we break down these eternal markets for kind of finding your purpose right now, that's what we're doing this for, is to identify the purpose and problem that you're going to frame your content and brand and situations from. And if you go back to previous call recordings where we talk about writing a good bio, or even on like a personal website, like what are you going to say there that is actually going to attract people to follow you, subscribe, like your content, etc. It's going to be the vision that you have for your brand. And then the other tactics and strategies that come along with writing to make it more impactful, of course, play a role. And that's what we'll talk about in the next call. So if we were to break these down, health can break down into really anything, but it's fitness, bodybuilding, nutrition, sleep, CrossFit, yoga, cooking, etc. Wealth, online business, e-commerce, side hustles, budgeting, finance, etc. Again, relationships, social skills, dating, marriage, intimacy, leadership, speaking, then happiness, philosophy, meditation, spirituality, mental models, lifestyle, etc. So what I want you to do is to pick either one or a few of these as the main starting point for your brand, the thing that you're most interested in, or you have the most experience in, or the thing that you are very good at. And if you are good at none of them, then just pick one and start studying it. You have to invest energy into a goal or an interest in order to increase the gravity of that interest, right? So you just kind of have to push through that initial phase of, I don't really want to learn this, until you find something where it's like, oh, that really catches my attention. I want to learn. I'm obsessed with this now and I can't stop learning about it. You have to invest in it to increase the gravity of it, meaning that it's going to pull you towards it the more that you do it, right? It's kind of like conditioning yourself to do those things. So that's the main thing. And on the bottom here, the topics or purposes in this case that you pick are what you're going to research, write, and create products around. And you want your curiosity to be your compass with this. Now, the main thing here that we have to get right, and what I would write down is I would write down both a goal for whatever it is that you choose here and a problem. Okay? So a goal for, let's say, health is to get absolutely jacked out of my mind so that I don't have a wife, but so my wife falls back in love with me again, or something like that, right? Something a tad bit irrational and crazy. And then the problem associated with that is right here and right now that you can solve and you can start writing about or start researching to overcome and just acquire interest and skill, is that I'm overweight. I don't feel very good. It's impacting my love life with my wife. And I don't like how people perceive me. I don't like, you can go on and on, right? This is something that you write out, and that's the starting point from which you're going to frame certain things that you read, watch, listen to, and write about when it comes to writing content. So the second thing is the path. So we have the goal, we have the problem, and now we need to create a path to actually bridge the gap between the two. So this is where things come into play with setting your brand apart from everyone else, is that people's purpose will be the same, but your path to get there will be different. This is what makes you unique. So in health, as an example, is one person will pursue ancestral living like Liver King and form a narrative and character around that, while the other will do modern biohacking. And so completely opposite ends of the spectrum to achieve the same result. And you can tell that they're entirely separate brands and unique brands because they each have a narrative. They each have interests and skills, which we're going to talk about on the left 1, 2, 3, 4 list, that is like how you get there yourself. And that is what you teach to other people to allow them to get there. So another example is in wealth is that one person will pursue budgeting techniques while the other, say, drop shipping. And on the topic of drop shipping, I'm sure there's good drop shippers right now. I just remember like 10 years ago where it was like the biggest thing and it was kind of annoying and it's not the best business model to go into, but people did anyways because of the promises of quick cash. And so it's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay if you experiment with things that don't really work, but remember that you're forming a narrative around these things and you're starting to condition yourself into like this character that you're acting as, and that's going to shape your actions in real life. So you have to be able to change direction as you go and be honest with yourself if you're not going down the right path. But that's what makes a good story, and that's what makes you attractive as a person, is being able to learn from your mistakes and find a better option, not only for your life, but the lives of your followers. So if you go into drop shipping and you're like, oh, I'm learning more about this industry, I don't really like it, let's start going down the online writing route. And then you start to discover what's good about that. And then you can start helping people with that as well, because it's a better option. And you can now speak from the experience of, I tried drop shipping, now I'm doing this, here's why. And then that's when the persuasion starts to come into play. So you do need to gain experience and fail throughout this entire journey. But this also stresses the importance of consistent education, research, and experimentation with curiosity as your guide. So what we're going to do here in step 1 is just deconstruct your purpose. So what you chose from the last slide relating to health, wealth, relationships, and happiness, you're going to break the goal that you set down into sub goals. So if your purpose is to get healthy, to better serve your family, or just be more attractive to your wife, or whatever it is, some sub goals can be to form a gym habit and clean up your diet, and you can write these out in your own time, right? The same is true for business, where if you want to make more money so that you can quit your job or retire your mom or do whatever it is you want to do, then some sub goals behind that is going to be learn marketing and sales, land your first client, gain 5,000 followers, whatever it may be, a goal. And that allows you to move on to step 2 and 3, which is to identify areas of interest. So what interests will you have to research to reach your sub goals and purpose? Write these down. It's so important to have not only interests and skills and goals and things that bring clarity to your life, to have those written down, because it gives you so many things to write about. Because what you're doing here is you're deconstructing the character and narrative that you're creating, and it all turns into content ideas, right? It turns into content ideas that you can teach and help others with, related to your interests. That's what we're all doing here as creators, is we're researching and we're applying the information that everyone has access to read to a specific goal that we're attracting people to. And that is how you not only be unique, but make something valuable, is to apply a specific piece of information that you find to a relevant goal and make it clear on how it helps other people get there or overcome the problems in their life. That's what value is. And that's how you separate yourself from everyone else, is just by having a goal and researching things through that lens and writing things down and then turning it into something valuable for other people, like writing, speaking, content, whatever it may be. And step number 3 is just skill acquisition. So what skills do you need to study and practice to achieve your goals? You're going to have to do this at some point. And so the good thing about the age that we live in is that there's so many books, there's so many articles, there's so many courses, there's just social media accounts giving everything out. You need to follow all of them and just drown in the information that is going to allow you to learn the skills, and then you apply it to not only the brand that you're building as one of your goals, that's why you're here on these calls, and to whatever goal you are trying to help others achieve, or that you have already achieved in your life. Like if you're already the healthiest guy around and that's what you want your brand to be based around, then you already have a head start on all of this. And so step 4 is to just document everything that you're doing here, is to become an avid note taker and write down the lessons, thoughts, failures, and systems you discover, because that will form your content and products, especially when we get into the content. So as you can see with all of this, branding, it holds so much. It's not as simple as just writing a good social media bio. That helps, of course, but like my bio right now is 2 words, but people know me as a brand because of all the content that I've written. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that all of this brand stuff is kind of intangible, up in the air. Like you can have certain strategies and tactics, but it's really just developing your own mindset and perspective, and then placing that online and writing from that mindset or perspective over time, and people start to understand what it is that you're about. And of course, you can just like say these things in your content, or let's say you write a newsletter, make a YouTube video. What are you about? What's your vision for the future? How are you going to get there? How can other people get there? Like that's valuable in and of itself, is just that's a how-to video. So the third thing is priority, or just daily action steps. So thing here again, I just want to remind you that this purpose, path, priority framework is powerful, and it can be applied to literally any area of your life. Purpose, path, priority is technically a copywriting framework. If you want to use it to write sales pages, or use it as a YouTube outline, or use it as a tweet outline, or use it as an Instagram post outline, or a reel script, or a TikTok script, whatever it is, it's that potent, right? And it's also like how you create a worldview or reality that people can join and follow along with your brand. It's also how you create an entire product. It's also how you create the certain sections of a product, right? It's like what, how, and why. What's the problem? Priority. How do you solve it? Path. How do you get there? Purpose. Why? Why do I care? What's the big vision that you're reaching towards? That's value in and of itself. So remember purpose, path, priority, and how you can use it in every single thing that you do. So the next step is to break down your path that you just did by breaking it down into goals, interests, and skills that you have to pursue and learn. It can be used for what we just talked about. So your brand as your current purpose. So that's one thing, is if you didn't want to choose anything from the health, wealth, relationships, happiness angle that we talked about earlier, you can just talk about how you're building your own brand and start to research certain things and teach from that lens. You don't have to say like, oh, I'm teaching 1,000 people, or I'm helping people gain 100,000 followers in 6 weeks, and then you only have like 5 followers. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you're building your brand. So you understand that an interest that you have to learn is writing. And so you go and study writing, and then you write a tweet on a lesson that you learned from writing. So it's like, what's the life force 8 from the book Cashvertising? And then you write that out. You give people advice on how to use the life force 8 to make their writing more impactful. And you're not promising anything special here or giving yourself a bad perception. You're just giving out the value that you're learning and that you find useful for yourself. And so you're treating your brand and your content as some form of public journal or public documentation of the advice that you would give yourself. And then you can also use it for the goals that you're trying to achieve. So just creating clarity, purpose, path, priority to get to the goal. And then to enhance your productivity and creativity in specific, because it allows you to filter signal from noise. When you have a purpose in your mind of, I want to build this brand, then you're going to, let's say, you're going to see information differently. So when you're scrolling on Twitter, per se, and you want to build a Twitter brand, you're not going to read the post like, oh, that was a good lesson, like I'm going to like this tweet. You're going to see it and you're going to look at it differently. You're going to be like, why does this have 1,000 likes and it's only one sentence? Like, what did they say here that made it do that well? And you start to dig deeper into what it is that you're doing on like every day at any moment, just because you have a goal at the top of your mind. That's how you stop being distracted and filter what is important from what is unimportant. So priorities for your brand that you're going to be building throughout this sprint is that just the first step is daily education, 30 to 60 minutes. Start with 30 minutes. The second is daily writing, so 30 to 60 minutes, because writing is the foundation of all content. And if you join Solopreneur Sprints late, a lot more of this will make sense as you go through the previous calls, right? I just don't want to repeat myself too much. I just want to go over the main principles and hopefully provide more perspective. So the third thing, which is optional but highly recommended and will be necessary in the near future for you, is daily building. So whether that be a lead magnet, a newsletter, something outside of learning and creating content, because eventually you'll have to monetize. Eventually you'll have to establish authority in something. So it could be a newsletter, a book, a digital product, a physical product, a service business, whatever it may be. You're learning along the way the skills and interests that are going to allow you to build, and that is what you apply the skills and interests that you that you learn to. And this has been kind of like a hack for me and has brought a lot of meaning to my life, is the very first hour of the morning is usually me building something new and high priority. So last year and previously before that too, it was the book. So writing the book. Other times it was sprints. Other times it was my other digital products. Other times it was reaching out to clients for my web design business. Other times it was building the e-commerce business that failed miserably and other things like that. But just knocking out that big thing that is going to make you progress in this life first thing in the morning, beyond just the mechanical rest of your day of doing the same thing over and over. That's how you make life good, is by building first thing in the morning. But education and writing do take priority over that to start, in my eyes. And so just to this is the last slide. So just to leave this here is curate and distribute, right? Input and output. You need to bring things in and you need to give things back in return by filtering it through the goals and worldview in your head. And we're going to talk about easier ways to write content in the next call on Thursday. But for now, like, what do you write about? What can you practice with? First thing is that the thoughts that you have along the way. There's always something in your thoughts. And so remember your narrative and how it applies. Your narrative is purpose, path, priority. So when you have a thought about like, oh, this is hard, or something, any thought of the 80, however many thousand you have in a day, think about your thoughts and then zoom out a bit more and think about the purpose that you're trying to achieve or the big goal. Think about how you're going to get there and maybe how that can help you get there, or at least create inspiration for something that will help you get there. And then priority. So what is it that you have to do, or the problems that you have to solve on a daily basis? And how does that thought apply to it, right? Make that connection and think it through. Go on a walk and just, that's the only thing on your mind. Think about it. The other thing is the lessons that you learn through research, education, and action. So if you've been taking notes on this sprint, you can like teach people what I've been teaching you. Just don't copy and paste it directly. It's that simple. Like if you found something useful and you know it's true and you're going to implement it, then practice saying that in an authentic way that isn't promising people something that you haven't done, right? That's really the only off limits when it comes to writing, is just don't promise people things that you can't back up. And it's that simple. Don't promise that people will gain 20,000 followers if you yourself don't have it, or you haven't gotten a client it before. Just write about it a different way. Third thing is the problems you're facing on your journey, so you can write through them. Like write out a solution, research it, find the solution, and then write about it. Or give yourself advice from the lens of your future self. So whether it be like the mindset should be in every brand. Spirituality, I believe, should be in every brand. But thinking of like how your future self would handle the situation that you're going through in the narrative that you're attracting people to, and dishing that out as content is going to attract people to you if it gets spread. And so a bonus, while you're doing this stuff, while you're researching and you're learning on a daily basis, you want to take note of the brands, content, and products that you observe along the way, because most of the time you're going to be listening to content that is high performing. And so you know that if you can replicate that from your own lens or your own worldview or your own character, then that can also be high performing. The same thing goes with brand inspiration that you get from looking at other people. And the same is true from products. And it is why the advice of sell what's already selling is not only very true, but very effective. Where I sell a writing product, but it's all my own information from an angle that I know will work, right? So it's the things that I've done before and have seen success with, but I knew that it would sell. I could have easily called it something other than 2 Hour Writer as an example, but I knew that writing was doing very well, and it was a good angle to go from, just from people like David Perel, Dickie Bush, Julian. I don't think he has a last name, but he's on Twitter, and other people that talk about writing. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to frame this from the lens of writing and create a unique solution. The purpose or the goal is to write for 2 hours a day. The path that I took to get there is like social media, writing on Twitter, writing a newsletter, breaking that down into other things. And then the priority every single day is to write the newsletter and solve the problem of not being able to write for 2 hours a day. So that's that. It is 10:44 my time. So, Joey, how are questions doing?
There have been a lot of them. That's all I've been doing for the past 40 minutes.
Okay.
That's some great questions.
Are they all like on topic?
Pretty much. I'd say 90% are.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's good. All right. Yeah. We'll skip examples for now. I was just going to go through a few where I'll give you guys who it was. So Hamza, Hamza, I'm sure a lot of you know him on YouTube, but he has a very good, he has a strong purpose. He's guiding a lot of young dudes to do good things with their life by providing a path for them, right? Broken up into pieces of content. So that's one thing I want you to pay attention to. Another one is Liver King. Again, I don't really care for the guy, but I can't deny that he has a very impactful brand, or at least he did. And he did that very well, but he made mistakes. And then another is Lane Norton. So BioLane, who is kind of the opposite of Liver King, where BioLane is very he calls out the BS in the health industry, and that's his purpose, right? Is to call out the BS so that people can get healthy in a way that they don't hate doing, or in a way that makes it seamless for them. So really just educating them on what is true about health and wellness, etc., in order to that's the path he is providing through his content. So those four, if you want to go, three, if you want to go research them: Hamza, Liver King, Lane Norton, and then apply or kind of pay attention to what you learned here and how those are going. So now I need to turn off these slides without closing the call like I did on one of the last sprints, and that was an absolute mess. Learn from my mistakes. Stop presentation. We did it. You guys can get a good view of Benji. Oh, he's tired. All right. Okay, so you answered quite a few. Do you want to just feed them to me? The ones that you think would need more explanation?
One that I didn't really answer because it's kind of hard to in a text chat type thing is one or two people asked about how to define or how to find a purpose when you don't feel like you're really interested in anything.
Yeah. So I talked about that a bit, where it's about investing energy into it, right? Because you're interested in things and you're researching things right now, whether you want to frame it like that or not. You're scrolling on your phone, you're taking in information. I'm assuming it's interesting to you. You may be watching certain shows on TV, but in my eyes, it's usually because like, I'm not hating on entertainment. I watch Netflix. I scroll on my phone too. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in the frame of this question that you're asking about, how do I find a purpose for something that I'm not interested in? It may be because the gravity of the things that you've already invested so much attention in are pulling you away and making you feel like you aren't interested in anything. So it's going to take a bit of struggle and pain to get out of that hole. So think of yourself in the hole, and you're down here, and there's walls going up, and you can't see anything up here because you're so far down. You have to like grind yourself out of that goal by investing your attention and effort into something that you at least think will lead to a better future for you. And you'll discover that why along the way, or like the real purpose of it, like along the way. So, I mean, I feel like it's pretty simple, where I would argue that most people want to make more money. Like, the way that I've framed it in previous writings of mine is that you need to solve the superficial problems before you go and solve like the deep metaphysical problems, because that requires more open-mindedness, like on a long-term scale, right? Because right now there's a certain amount that you can open your mind, and there's like a certain narrowness to your mind that is keeping you, like, the problems keep your mind, the problems that you have in your life that you may not even be aware of, keep your focus narrowed on the specific things that you're doing on a daily basis. So you have to kind of start to pursue things to overcome superficial problems. And the superficial problems are making more money, so you have more freedom, developing a social skill set, so you can create better relationships for yourself and not have to deal with the stress of that every day because you aren't solving the problems in your relationships. And it's all health, wealth, relationships, happiness. That should be the first purpose that you are working towards. And so happiness is like meditation, philosophy, etc., like living the good life, but that crosses over into like all of them. And then I forget the last one: health, wealth, business, making more money, health, getting healthier, because that alone creates a lot of stress in your life. Like, if it just does. So I hope that helps, because like you really just have to start researching something, like 30 to 60 minutes a day of, I'm going to watch this YouTube video. I'm going to force myself to watch this YouTube video that at least I think is interesting and maybe something that I want to do. Or buy a book on it. Start investing either money or energy in the things that you think will get you to that place. And then eventually, if you do that long enough, it will start to become habit. It will start to, quote unquote, reprogram your mind, and you'll start to see, okay, like now I'm becoming more interested in these things. It went away from me really quick, but for people asking about language, that's always a question. If either write in English or write in your language, either one. But if you can, write in English. That's just long story short. I'll answer the question at, like, straight and to the point. If you speak 2 languages and you can write in English, write in English. If you can't, write in your home language. End of discussion. Anything else, Joey? They're all going really fast.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them. Do you have another example of the purpose path priority? The 2-hour example was very helpful, but where else have you seen this?
I mean, just planning my day. Like, what do I want out of my day? What's the goal? I want to have a good day. I want to feel absolutely amazing. So how am I going to get there? I'm going to write down the priority tasks that I have to do every single day, and then I'm going to execute on those. Like, the purpose, like, it can be short or long term. It's literally anything. And as I mentioned, like, when creating a product, when writing a landing page, what is the purpose that I'm trying to help others achieve, aka the desired outcome? What is the path to get there, aka my offer? Like, how is my offer going to create a path for them to achieve that purpose, and what is the priority, the problem that they're trying to solve. So you have lead, body, and call to action of a landing page, and that's how you create a good sales page, is purpose, path, priority. It's just human behavior in general. Like, apply it to anything. So I would encourage you to think about how that applies to your life, or when you have a conversation with another person, what's the purpose of this conversation? What's the ideal outcome? How do we get there? How do I create and navigate the conversation to actually get there? And right now, what can I focus on in this present moment to allow that to happen? Right? So it's with conversations with others, it's when you're DMing people, it's everything. I see a question from Oliver. I understand my purpose and interest, but I don't know what to sell. Any tips? Sell what's already selling. Research the people that you probably already listen to and look at right now, and see what they're selling, and research a bunch of different people like that are doing that, and you'll see a lot of crossover, because it's not really about like what you're selling, because that's going to be almost the same as everyone, because there are certain products that are validated in the market, but the angle of it when you're marketing it is different. So that's going to require you to learn marketing, sales, copywriting to create a persuasive angle to actually sell that product to other people. So like, that's the best example I can give, really, is to just look at what products or services are on the market from people that you like, or just in general, and recreate it under your own brand. That way you know it's going to sell. At least do that for the first product, and then by then you'll have experience to create more, like a more unique product, if you have the systems to do so. And if you're experienced enough in the skills and interests that you have right now, you can see what products are out there and make it better by doing it your own way, teaching it how you would want to teach it, or creating it how you would want it to be created for you.
I have two things I'd like to share that I think would help with a lot of the questions I've seen. Is that cool?
Wait, what?
I have two things that I would like to share that I think would be helpful for a lot of the questions I've seen.
Okay. Wait, what? Sorry, I don't know why I didn't hear that.
Is my mic not working or something?
No, it is. My left ear's plugged. Yeah, I can hear you.
I have two things I want to talk about.
Okay.
So these are things that will be helpful for a lot of the questions I've seen through the chat. So one is, I've seen people confused about how they can help their audience with their brand. So basically think about it. Your audience is at point A. They have problems and pains, and they want to get to point B where they don't have those problems and pains anymore, and they want to get some benefit. Your brand, your content, and your offers are the bridge that helps them get from point A to point B. So think about it that way. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I've seen a lot of people ask questions about, I don't know what to talk about, I don't know what to build a brand around, build my character around, all this stuff. The simplest way to figure out which way to go is write down everything you're interested in, then see if there are any intersections between them. So, for example, I'm interested in psychology, neuroscience, productivity, self-help, entrepreneurship, and multiple other things. So I combine some of those into becoming a productivity coach for business owners based on psychology and neuroscience. So that's an intersection. So then I started researching that and then started applying that in my brand and my business. And so that's how I became a performance coach. So if you do that, you'll find these intersections that you may not really know anything about, but you can start researching them. And if you find out that you enjoy one or two of them, well, that becomes a focal point for your brand. So just start there, and you can iterate over time, find stuff you like talking about that you don't like talking about, and refine it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. You say that kinder than I would. I have this question highlighted. I'm gonna see. Okay. The way that I would say it for the second one is, think of it. So when you're, how do I put this? when you can't, when you don't know what to pick or choose, you have to just pick. Don't overcomplicate it beyond that. You just have to pick something. If you have a list of things, as Joey said, pick something and write about it. Just because you pick something and write about it doesn't mean that you have to stick with that for the rest of your life. It's actually good that you write about it and you discover, oh, I don't really like this, so I'm going to try something else. And it's trial and error. It's not only the scientific process, it's life itself. You have to try, you have to make mistakes, you have to realize, okay, I don't want this, so I want to try this. I don't want this, so I want to try this. And you slowly get better and better at realizing what it is that you truly want to do. And that comes with time and practice. The further you delay, because here's the thing, you're going to have to pick something eventually. It might as well be now. And whether or not you pick something today or in 6 months, you're still going to go through the period of trial and error, because once you think you want something, you're going to pick it in 6 months and you're going to start doing it. And then you're going to realize, oh, I didn't want this. And so you're going to try something else, and then you're going to go through the same exact process. So it's worth just picking something and writing about it and practicing distributing the value. So next thing, or this was a question from Jack. It got lost in the chat very quick. But when you originally identified your irrational huge purpose, how are you able to defeat both the doubts from others and doubts from yourself and stay true to your vision? To me, it's it's the same thing. It's that's a part of the path, right? Is you know that those doubts and those failures and everything else is going to come up. And so you need to arm your mind with these solutions to overcome those. So you need to study things like the skills and interests of, let's say, emotional management or self-confidence or stoicism or philosophy. And you need to research these things and implement them into your life so that you have value to give to other people relating to that. You need to solve those problems in your life by researching and acquiring the skills to do so. And so that isn't really seen as a problem because it isn't that tangible, but it's the same as any other skill or interest that you're trying to develop. Is if I have this thought of self-doubt or that I care too much what other people think, then I need to research a solution to that and practice with many different techniques until I solve that problem for myself. And along the way, I can write about it. I can tell other people what's been working for me, what hasn't been working for me. And eventually, let's say 6 months to a year from now, once the problem is close to solved, if it ever actually gets solved, then I have more value related to that. And just so we can actually focus on these questions, I mentioned this at the beginning of the call. Any personal questions or questions that are not related to the call that we just had will not be answered. So keep that in mind. You see any, Joey?
Not yet. How do you, this one could be relevant to other people as well. Say you start writing about something, how do you pivot without alienating your current audience?
How do you what without alienating your audience?
Pivot, like start talking about something different.
You start at beginner level. So we've talked about this in previous cohort calls as well, but when it comes time to pivot, let's say you want to go from health to business, so to say, you're doing the same thing that you were doing, where you're going to start presenting business principles and why they are important to learn. You're going to educate people on business and why it's important to do in their life. That's like your new narrative, in a sense, that you're starting to help people get on board with. Is you're not going to go straight into a piece of content where it's where you're originally talking about health, and then now you're like, oh, top 10 marketing tips of 2023. No, you're going to introduce what marketing is and why it's important to people, or marketing as a skill that everyone should learn, right? That's the main thing, is you need to position the content that you're creating for your current audience. So let's say that you're a health guy, I'm a business guy, and you give me access to your account for a day. What am I going to say that is going to help people, let's say, build a business? How I have to introduce them to it first and the importance of it and who can benefit from it. And then I need to talk very beginner level. Okay, here's the 10 skills you need to learn if you want to make more money, right? That's a very broad and high performing topic. So that's what you do, is you go broad and high performing until people start to recognize that that's what you're talking about. And then as you get deeper and deeper into that, you can start to incorporate some of the more intermediate and advanced concepts. But even then, on social media, I would argue that 80+% of your content should be beginner level, because people aren't going on social media to learn the next advanced tactic. They're going on to scroll and just get whatever information they can. If they want something more advanced, they're going to Google it. They're going to look for your course. They're going to look for something else. They're not going to want it on their timeline, and it's not going to get very much engagement or spread anyways. So that's not the content that's going to lead to growth or even authority, because it may give you authority, but it's not going to be spread to anyone that would actually build your authority, right? So broad and beginner level. From Enrico, how do you avoid shiny object syndrome when switching between topics. I am not a believer of shiny object syndrome. Because if you have the big goal for your life, anything that you learn and switch between is going to aid in that. Like when I always say that I've failed at 7 different business models. Like each of those taught me something that actually allowed me to achieve the goal, right? It's trial and error. So unless you're switching, unless the shiny object is just a complete and utter distraction from living a better life, then yeah, that's a shiny object. If it's going to help you live a better life, then that's like polymathery. That's being multidisciplined. That's being a Renaissance man. That's learning and acquiring this knowledge from multiple domains, connecting the patterns between the two, and letting the dopamine flood your brain from doing that. That's what life is all about. So I wouldn't frame it as shiny object syndrome. I'd frame it as learning everything that you can in order to achieve the goal and trying everything that you can, because what else are you going to do with your time? Nothing beneficial to your future. Maybe. But if you're doing something beneficial for your future, then I don't see it as shiny object syndrome. It may take a bit longer, maybe, but it's going to teach you something that will give you more experience to get results faster. From Francisca, I don't quite understand Notion, the software yet. How can I get the template? There, if you go to the dashboard, if you log into the dashboard and you go to like duplicate the Notion template, the tab in there, there's a video that shows you exactly how to duplicate it and use it. From Nicholas, I want to sell something about Twitter growth, but I feel it's oversaturated. Do you think that's a cope? No, sell what's already selling. If it's saturated, it means it's selling. The only thing to be careful with there is that a lot of people, I wouldn't say it's saturated. I say it lacks market sophistication, or no, it doesn't lack market sophistication. It lacks overall sophistication, where you can create a better, technically 2-Hour Writer is a Twitter growth course. It's just positioned in a much more authoritative way that's going to benefit me more than being just another guy that sells a Twitter growth course. But at the same time, make sure that you've grown on Twitter or you've helped other people grow on Twitter before you do that. I can only see your name in here, not what you've actually done. Just make sure that you are creating something that you have the results to back, especially if what you're promising is Twitter growth, right? Because I can promise writing 2 hours a day because that's what I've done. But it's kind of sort of the same curriculum in there. Dr. Zubir, is it wrong to talk about multiple topic areas like health, fitness, nutrition, entrepreneurship, books? Or is it better to pick 1 or 2 and refine your niche? You can go either way. I've seen people do whatever they want. Hamza, for example, he talks about whatever he wants. Business, money, fitness, nutrition, whatever, because he approaches it from relatable problems and specific goals, right? Where, as I said earlier in the call, everyone's umbrella niche is self-improvement. Self-improvement breaks down into fitness, nutrition, business, health, wealth, relationships as a whole. And so if you want to talk about all of those because your brand is leading people towards a better life, and you can frame that and say it however you want, there's nothing wrong with that because people are interested in self-improvement. Therefore, they're interested in accounts. If you would follow an account, that's the question. If you would follow the account that talks about all of those things, would you follow it and would you like it? And what would you want to see from them? If yes, recreate that as your own brand. From Daniel, and to hit on the speaking 2 languages question again, if you can speak English, write in English. I would not try to balance bilingual in English. I would not try to balance 2 languages with different accounts. Build one, sell a product, make it profitable, and then consider if doing another one is beneficial to you. If you don't speak English, Don't know how you'd be understanding me right now, but yes. It's okay to try different platforms. Yes. How long do you think it'll take to make your first dollar online if we implement everything from solopreneur sprints? We haven't talked about monetization in this call, so technically I can't promise any dollars. But what you will be doing is potentially building an audience with the strategies that you have. And then if you build a product or service that is attractive to those people, then, and you present it to your audience, which is going to require a skill set in and of itself, that's going to, I mean, if you dedicate, as I mentioned, the 30 to 60 minutes every morning to learning, 36 to 60 minutes to building, 30 to 60 minutes to writing, it depends on how old you are, how, like, your life experience, what you've already done. It could take 6 months. It could take a year. It could take you 2 years. I would have a big problem. I would say it's a big problem. If you couldn't make it work in 2 years, then something went wrong, or you aren't being honest with yourself about the actions that you're taking on a daily basis. So if 2 years seems like a lot to you, that's how long it takes to get through like a community college. 4 years, obviously a university degree. Average US salary is, I think it's like $50K, something like that. So 2 years of obsessive study and building your own thing to not have a cap on your income, or 4 years to make $50K or above. And I don't know, choice is yours. Is it me? Oh no, I don't want to miss this. Oh crap, I missed it. It was something about 4 hours of focused work and my dog being the epitome of a modern Renaissance man. But did Hamza start out that way? I'm assuming so. I did. I talked about web design, or I sold web design, and most of my content was around spirituality, mindset, emotional management, self-improvement, with the occasional web design marketing tips. That's one thing I hate, is like how much information there is, where it's like, pick a niche, don't talk about anything outside of a niche. And it's like, that's not how life works, man. This isn't a biology class. This isn't a chemistry class. Life isn't niched down into little classrooms, because that's the worst way to learn. Ditto to the comments of not really clear on the action items for the solopreneur sprint. I want to use these 2 weeks to take action and build brand, therefore content. This is where we will see results through taking action. Yes. But that is the exact thing, where you have access to 8 hours of previous curriculum recordings where it goes over. This is why I was trying to make it very clear in the previous emails and other information that you have access to the very practical steps of actually, like, okay, here's what you put in your Instagram or Twitter bio. Here's exactly what you write. This, as was explained on the landing page when purchasing, are a reiteration of the principles of certain things to bring more depth and clarity to what it is that you should already be doing with this stuff. So the 2 week sprint, I think that's very good to like have that goal in mind. But these calls are structured in what we're talked about on the landing page. So the other calls that are inside with the Notion templates that have you writing everything out in a very practical manner and being able to straight up post that online if you'd like, that's all there inside of the dashboard where this call will be. So the action steps for this call is education relating to the purpose, path, priority framework that we talked about, 30 to 60 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes of writing with either the content framework that we're going to talk about tomorrow or what has already been taught in the 8 previous calls. And then 30 to 60 minutes of building, but that's optional. And so in terms of writing, but remember that this is also a brand call. It's not very, like, branding isn't very tangible, right? There are you need a profile picture, a bio, et cetera, to actually like create a social media profile. But again, we talk about all of that in previous calls, and I didn't see it as valuable to go over it again when it's already there at your convenience. Okay, from Tiffany. Okay, last try. I've been studying different self-help books for close to... It's going to disappear. Hold on. I've been studying different self-help books for close to 9 years. At what point does all the information click that gives you that sense of purpose that creates the narration/evolved speech to allow you to make sense of all that you've learned to give to an audience? How do you take it from compiling all you've learned from different topics before you start to share your view to the world? I'm no Jordan Peterson, of course, but it feels like I'm learning, but the learning process is taking forever. It sounds like you're thinking in terms of like long form and the perfected version, where if you go and look back at my previous YouTube videos, like in the past, like I was stumbling over my words left and right. As I mentioned, in terms of like both skills and learning, it's all trial and error. Like the sooner you start, the sooner you get through that period of trial and error, right? So it's not about, like you already have things to share. It's not about waiting until you can speak like Jordan Peterson to share with the world. It's, okay, I read an article today. I got this good tip. I want to share it with my audience. I'm going to post it on Twitter in my own words. It's as simple as that. And then once you do that enough and you start to form this worldview, or like you can even do it right off of the get-go. Like if you're creating a newsletter or YouTube video or something long form, you need a headline or a topic. You need to discuss the problem within that. You need to go over a body or key points to overcome that problem. And then at the end is just a conclusion. And so you have that information in your head right now. And you also have the ability to research and find the information that you need to fill in the gaps for what it is, the knowledge gaps that you have when you're writing, right? That's what research is for. And that's how you're giving to your audience, is you're learning and distributing, because I forget it's the protege effect. You learn things better when you teach them to someone else. And a lot of people have the blockage that like they feel like they can't teach unless, I don't know, they're like an expert in it or something related to that. But don't think of it like that. Think of like your Twitter as you're talking to friends. You're talking to a big group of friends. And so let's say that I learned something new today and I go out to dinner with my friend, Joey. The idea was so interesting to me that I had to teach him about it. And I'm going to tell him exactly what I think about that idea and see if he resonates with it. And so that's what you're doing when you're posting content is, hey, I found this idea very exciting. I'm going to apply it to my life. I want you to know about it too. So here's how I write it in a tweet, right? In this sentence, or how I structure it. How did you overcome the overwhelm felt from fixing all the problems in your life and start focusing on one? By doing just that. It's practice, right? It's not that you're overwhelmed with problems. You're overwhelmed with the thoughts in your head about the problems. And so you need to, I mean, again, you can research and study how to do this and apply certain techniques and principles to your life to overcome this, but it's purpose, having the problem that you're trying to achieve, path, breaking it down into clear goals and action steps, and priority is focusing solely on those one day at a time. That's really all you can do. Is just, you only have so much time in a day. You have only so much actions you can take. You only have so much time that you can dedicate to certain things. And you have to be okay that if you have 10,000 problems in your life and you can do 3 a day, it's going to take however long it takes to solve 10,000 problems. Oh, that's a good one from David. I have a story around this. You come across a spirituality topic that is too far out for most of your audience to consume. How much spirituality is too much if you want to stay in self-development and business arena? So I branched into a few, like my perspective on God. I've mentioned like a few in YouTube videos, and all it really did for me, well, the other thing is, like, I like to explain things from a practical lens and try to keep it very grounded, but that was like my attempt at like being more abstract and philosophical. And what happened is that someone expressed their love to me via email. I ignored 60 emails, and 100 texts later with Bible verses and death threats. I have a restraining order against her. And in my eyes, it's not worth it. So it's a great way to attract people that are living in a different reality, and however you want to take that. But yes, I will be keeping things fairly practical from now on, because it attracts very good people, but it also attracts very interesting and certifiably insane people, and very dogmatic and ideologous. I'm starting to get a hold of what you're saying when talking about not niching down, but still, I really find it hard to build my personal brand when my interests are spread out in different directions, and I'm having a hard time to find that red thread. I don't know too much about what a red thread is, but think of, so I'd have to know, like, when you say niche, what do you mean? Right? Because when business people say niche down, they mean a bunch of different things. Where, like customer avatar, so niching down in a market, finding a niche market. When it comes to content, writing about a niche topic, like niche doesn't really have a meaning aside from being specific in what it is that you do. So the way that I like to think about for a personal brand is your niche is the goal that you're helping people achieve, the desired outcome that people want to achieve. And so if your desired outcome for your life is XYZ, let's say for me, it's to have a genius brain and be a hyper intellectual, then everything I read or consume or want to say can be filtered through that lens. And I'm not really limited to anything. If starting a business helps me improve my mental capacity or cognition, then that's free game in my content, because it helps other people that are going to reach that thing too, right? You can really talk about whatever it is that you want, like Zuby, who's a rapper, talks about politics, and then he sells a fitness product, right? He's all over the place, and he's raking it in because he understands that a tweet disappears within 6 hours, and he can write anything that he finds interesting because the people like him that are going to want to achieve the same goals can write anything they want. That's the thing, is I'm giving myself, if I am the niche, I'm writing the advice that I find interesting to myself, the advice, lessons, thoughts, opinions, whatever it may be. And then I'm iterating over time until I truly find what that niche is. Like, as I said, I can talk big picture, abstract, like philosophy and spirituality, but then I find out that it attracts interesting people and threatens my life, then I'm not going to do that anymore. And the same goes, like, if I don't get too much engagement on a specific thing that I write about, or it's less than normal, then that's a data point where I see that and I go, okay, I either need to rewrite this in a new way or just understand that it's not as interesting as I initially thought it was. And then you slowly start to refine on and on and on. So I hope that helped. I can't see which ones you're answering, Joey, but I'm saving a few. So we're going to have to call this soon. All right. I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. My current interests are productivity and creativity. With that, my eternal markets would be wealth and potentially even health. One of my favorite subtopics for productivity / self-improvement is the neuroscience of emotions and emotions science in general as well. My goal would be to create beginner level content around productivity and creativity, but my interest in emotions, as an example, to connect how I became more productive and creative and how that's helped me land better paying jobs and make more money. Yes, but at the same time, it's just like in the grand scheme of things, yes, because that's what people pay attention to in your brand. Like brand, what we talked about today isn't like I'm trying to fit this all in one tweet so that people know that I'm always know what I'm about all the time. Brand is like something that people are exposed to by following you, and the way you attract people to you is by creating something interesting, just a piece of content, right? Writing a tweet, letting it get spread, networking with people, doing whatever you have to do to grow. And then over time, as people are exposed to your content more and more, which takes a long time, like it takes time for people to actually discover who you are, because they're going to find you from one tweet and then they're going to miss the next 6 that you post. And then they're going to read one and they're going to miss the next 6. And so over the course of a year, people develop a relationship with you and understand what you're all about. And at that point, like that's how you create a loyal follower. But in terms of like, if we're looking at the main goal here, that's how you grow and develop a following. But if we're looking at like the goal of monetizing something, that's a separate skill set, right? That's separate, where you are learning something like direct response marketing or how to write a sales page, which is attention capture to people that slightly resonate with what you do in your audience. And then they click to it. And then they read the lead. They read, like they're guided through the sales page to the point of like, if someone comes to your brand because you talked about emotions and you have a beginner level productivity or creativity course, what is like simply because one person likes emotions and the other likes productivity, like what's going to stop the emotions person from buying the productivity product if you're talking about it from a beginner level? Nothing, because they see, and hopefully you can illustrate why this productivity product is important for their life and how it can help them, right? With the problems that they have and the problems that every single person has within the health, wealth, relationships, happiness market. So this holds true for absolutely anything that you're writing, is that people can become interested in things that they weren't originally interested in. Okay? Like people that learn about, and I'm not getting heated over this question. This was a great question. I'm getting heated over the concept in general, but like someone can be interested in emotions and productivity, and you can also talk about health, and they may not be interested in health. That doesn't mean that they're going to unfollow you, and that also doesn't mean that they can't become interested in health. And when they do become interested in health, you're the one that taught them that, and they develop that closer relationship with you and makes it so that they're going to buy from you over the next guy. If you only stick to one topic and one niche and have no depth to your brand and are a glorified search engine, because like this is the problem that I'm getting at here with niching down, is that people are allowed to become interested in many things. You probably follow people across the board of 20 to 30 different interests, and some of them overlap. Like one person could talk about those 20 to 30 interests, which is what people do all the time on podcasts like Modern Wisdom, Impact Theory, etc. They talk about health, wealth, relationships, happiness. That's my point. So if we think of the niche of Tom Bilyeu, or we think of the niche of, what's his name, Chris Williamson, or even Jordan Peterson, who talks about the carnivore diet a lot. He talks about health, and people don't care. People see the value in it because he's talking about it from an introductory and beginner level. With cancel culture, is it better to use your own name versus pen name? I'm not worried I'll get canceled, but still, is a pen name safer? Yes, it is, in my eyes. Like, I don't think you'll get canceled or people will come after you, but I don't know. It is safer. Dan Coe is a pen name, but I think people can find my actual name. But, oh well. How do you avoid those threats, privacy invasion, when building a personal brand? I don't know, man. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't think, I mean, you just have to be very careful about who it is that you talk to. And so the person that did it, in my case, was a client. So, like, or she signed up as a client. And so in that case, it's like I was obligated to respond for a bit, and she had my personal number, and that was a mistake. So, one, don't give people your personal number, even if they're a client, because they can go crazy. That was kind of the main, like, big thing. And then just, like, pay attention. Like, when you create your business, use, like, a virtual mailbox. You can just look up Google virtual mailbox and then put that as, like, make sure that's the face of what people see in your business, so people don't know your actual address. Aside from that, you can just block emails or report them as spam. And then you're kind of set in that sense. Just do what you can to be careful. All right. From Paul, if we are already establishing ourselves in a narrow niche, should we consider widening it in light of your advice? My gut suggests sticking to my lane, which I love. Yeah, no, if you love your lane, that's the other thing is, like, I just know that there's so much dissonance. I don't know if that's the word. There's a lot of, like, for people that want to talk about more, they get trapped in the advice and mindset that they have to stick to a niche, right? But if you enjoy your niche and, like, that's what you love and you are doing very well with that, there's no problem there, right? There's a problem with people that feel like they want to talk about more but can't. There isn't a problem with you sticking to one thing and doing very well with that. So if that's where it is and that's what your gut suggests, then 100% stay in that lane. But, like, the advice to that also is, it really depends on your goal, right? Because, like, and the how broad that niche actually is. Because if it's something like small business accounting, it's going to be hard to build an audience around that, like, very large. So, like, what we're talking about here is going to be difficult to apply to that, but what we're talking about here isn't the only way to grow business or do something related to that. So you're going to have to, like, think critically about, okay, I want to get to this level. Audience building may not help me get there, but paid ads, local referrals, whatever it is the business is, that's going to be the better way to get there. But for a lot of people that want to talk about multiple interests and want to sell something related to their interests and so on and so forth, then it's usually what we talk about here. And that's why I say this on the landing page. It's like, if you want to talk about multiple interests, if you want to do this, qualification, it's personal brand, usually a digital product, but you can do physical product, service business, whatever it may be, and the progression involved within that. Sergio, how viable and time rewarding would it be to start on X if I have practically no followers? How would you go about starting? I mean, technically, if you're to start on any platform, you have 0 followers. Like, if you're going to grow on X eventually, you're going to do it with 0 followers. I think it's a great way to go. In terms of how you would go about starting, I would watch through the first 3 videos in the Solopreneur Sprints dashboard that you have access to. Those are like the very practical. We're going over the Notion templates. We're like giving you the actionable advice of like step by step. Okay, here's how you set up the brand. Here's how you set up the content. Here's strategies to grow, and just follow that to a T. How do you overcome the perils of audience capture when the creator becomes a servant to the audience and loses track of self? It's based on an article written by Guru Winder. By being very mindful of that. That's the thing, is like once you understand that that can be a problem, you're going to be more likely not to fall into that problem. But yeah, that's really it. Like I feel like it's a skill set that allows you to avoid that problem, which is content writing, copywriting to an extent, marketing, sales, because the thing there is you, like, if you want to talk about something differently, then you need to understand the levels of awareness in marketing. Benji, stay out of it. You have to understand the levels of awareness in marketing and like how to introduce people to a new topic and how to frame things and position things. So if you're going to if you're like a health account and people want you to continue creating health content and you want to transition over into business, then you create a beginner level business video on, let's say the title of it is a bad title. You can come up with a better one, but it's like, why starting an online business will get you 6-pack abs, right? There's like a little bridge there to allow you to start talking about what it is that you really want to talk about. And that's just the positioning of it. And then really that video can contain anything that you want to talk about as long as it serves what the title is, or it delivers the promise of the title. Jen, why is Twitter your preferred platform? I already have a bigger Instagram and YouTube following. Should I start a Twitter anyways? No, you don't need to. I like Twitter just because it's plain writing. It's idea centric. I can post like as many times as I want in a day and test ideas. And then it's my preferred platform because it's like trickle down content to everything else, where I test all of my ideas on Twitter, see how they do, turn the best ones into newsletters. Newsletter goes to YouTube. Best ideas also get pretty much copy pasted to Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads now. And that's why I like it the most, is because the system that I use is very effective. And so that's why I recommend other people at least starting there, because one, it's just writing focused. You don't have to post any pictures. It's as simple as just like writing a sentence and posting it, and networking and meeting other people and helping each other grow. Okay. There's one on music here. I'm going to copy it over. All right. This is a long one. I am going to cut the call at 12, so it's 2 hours. They were supposed to be an hour. But I would go longer, but I have to move. The movers are coming. I have been in the music industry for the past 30 years, from producer/DJ to behind the scenes as mastering and mixing engineering work. Mixing engineering, oh my God, and mixing engineer working with worldwide clients. I also have been teaching my craft for 10 years. I could create many products, but the industry is really complex to leverage, and I'm kind of tired of it. I feel I want to pivot into something like coaching creatives to help them to profitable creativity, habits, and personal brand. Would it be a pity to not leverage my actual brand and go for something new? And if, is it recommended to start a new account, social media for a new brand? I know you kept yours, Dan, but is it still relevant in 2023 with all the changes? There aren't really any changes, like as far as just human nature and like audience capture goes. It's difficult to answer because you can go about it in multiple different ways. Like you could go about it either way. You could start a new account and it'll work. I mean, or fail depending on the persistence that you have. Or you could keep with your current account and it could work, or it could fail depending on the persistence that you have. So like I can give what I think is the best option, but again, like take it with a grain of salt. You're going to have to pick something, choose it, and just execute for fucking ever. I would recommend that you keep your current brand, because if it's still music engineering, it's still somewhat related to creativity, and improving people's creativity, productivity. I forget what the other two were. Like those people can become interested in those, right? As I mentioned earlier, is you can introduce your current audience to those things and stress the importance of them to other people. That's the main thing. So because you already have a following, from what it sounds like, or at least like some amount of followers, so you don't have to start absolutely from scratch, I'd recommend doing that. And I wouldn't overthink it too much, because this has been on your mind. It's something that you want to dedicate time to and put effort into. I would go full force into it. If you really notice, like if you know that your content bangs and it's supposed to be spread, and you're doing what you can to grow your account with strategies that we talked about in previous calls in this cohort and wherever else you've learned it, and it's just like your account just isn't growing because it's throttled by the algorithm, which I really haven't seen that actually happen from people that have good content and are putting things out there, then the only thing you can do is start a new account, right? Like you can get upset about it and quit and fail because you wasted that time, but you didn't really waste that time. You can just repost all the content that you already posted to that account and then really get it going quicker. So that's my advice. Brian, my focus/mission is to help equip young people with the tools and strategies to navigate their lives and careers with confidence and clarity. I've successfully run large internship programs in Chicago, but I'm struggling with how to transfer/translate this over to social media. It's almost like my idea/mission is too big and I don't know where to start. I relate to what you do online because much of what you talk about directly speaks to choosing the path in life and using your gifts and skills to help others as well as yourself. But again, I don't know how/where to start. I know we're running out of time here. Just thought I'd toss this question out there in case it interested you. This has been my lifelong passion/mission. It's where all of my focus and curiosity goes. High school, college age kids need help detaching from the myths they've been taught so they can confidently chase down their own path. Anyways, that's it. Well, there's your brand, man, is that young people need help detaching from the myths of what they've been taught. And really, okay, so that's purpose. Path is like, one, let's think of path in terms of skills and interests. Skills that like you need to learn and give to them, and skills that you need to learn and give to them. So what do they actually need to detach from the myths of what they've been taught? To me, it sounds like a lot of content to be written on social conditioning and just habit formation and lifestyle design. It also sounds like skills of, like, if I'm assuming correctly, and some of the myths are that the best route to go is like the default path where it's like go to school, get a job, retire at 65, argue with your spouse, do all this stuff that like the masses do because a lot of them are mindless, then in that case, it's like, okay, you have to learn how to start a business. You have to start teaching the skills related to starting a business. And you can do that. Like you can teach web design and not relate it to a business, right? Like if I started fresh and it's like, okay, I want to teach web design, I don't have to, a lot of people have like an attachment to like a monetizable skill that you have to teach how to monetize. No, you can just teach the skill without any strings attached, with no promises of more money, and you will have arguably more authority than those that promise money along with it. Like if you can just teach the skill of writing, web design, whatever skill it is that will help these young people detach from the myths they've been taught, then they're going to see the value in that, especially if you can frame it from that lens of like, web design is a skill that can help you, that can help creative people land clients or something. That's attached to money, but you get what I'm saying. So it's really all the things that you see online. You're just going to give your own perspective of it. So think of it this way. All of the people that you consume on YouTube, including me and Twitter and wherever else you are, you're looking for their highest performing topics and you're going to recreate those under your own words and how you would write it. Literally take the title, rewrite, like don't even watch the video, write something that fulfills that title, and then change the title to match what it is that you wrote, right? So then you have a high performing piece of content and you're distributing information that hopefully is a principle that needed to be repeated. I feel like a lot of people also get trapped in the mindset that everything has to be unique. Like I can't take a quote from this book and make it my own, even though it impacted my life so much. Like, oh, I have to create something original that isn't going to impact the world in even like remotely as much. Like, oh, I have to, I don't know, just take it, make it your own, experience it, think about it, contemplate. Like if you've already experienced it or it just rings true to you, then you have full permission to post it for someone else so that it can ring true for them. Just don't copy paste. Dan, do you have advice for high impact writing as an artist that grows a brand without coming across as a non-artist? A lot of the high impact posts for Twitter is like 5 skills for, but that doesn't really give the brand of an artist / creative person. It's more influencer and would work against the brand. Yes, I'd go through the content checklist. There's so in the calls, so it would either be the second call in the dashboard or the 6th call in the dashboard. Those should both be based around content writing. Because that's the thing is like you don't have I don't buy it when like this could be just a belief in your head where it's like the high impact Twitter posts are 5 skills for like those are high performing. Yeah. But if you go to like Tweet Hunter or something else and you look up a brand that you like, most of them are not going to be like that. Like go look up Mark Manson, go look up Naval, go look up whoever else it may be. You can do that in Tweet Hunter or just like, I don't know what app it is that allows you to filter people's top tweets, but you can probably find a website that allows you to do that. But that's really it. Like just study the high performing content and understand like the frameworks that allow things to do really well. And another thing here is I'm also thinking of the way that people write things where a lot of people think they're being creative or artistic with their words and they're just overcomplicating things way too much. Like I would argue that the most creative or artistic is, well, like the purpose of art is to be enjoyed or it's supposed to spark emotion in someone, right? And so it's not a matter of like, oh, I have to use big words or make this super poetic in order to do that. It's the game of how do I get this point that I'm trying to make across in a way that like really hits them where it hurts. That's like what the most artistic thing is to me. It's not like writing like it's not like writing like Seneca, because that language is outdated and like we have more robust language to get the point across better than they did, or writing like someone would in the Bible. Like that's just going to go over people's heads, and we have better ways of explaining things now. This is me kind of going off topic, but I hope that helped to some extent. In short, don't fall into the belief that all high performing topics are like 5 skills to do X, Y, Z, or this. Like, prove them wrong. Prove yourself wrong. From Usama, I can't really help with this one, man. I'm an automotive, well, I can, but I'm an automotive engineer. My work does require dealing with automotive clients. I do it on a regular salary contract. How to pivot into gig-based freelancing. You have to learn like something that you can freelance with. You have to learn how to freelance. You need to study those endlessly and practice daily and block out time to do so. Right? If we have more specifics, like how do I, like from what it seems right now, it sounds like you need to prioritize time in the morning for learning and building and doing that consistently until you can get out of the job and learning as you go along the way. Because to me, it sounds like I need a more specific question of like, okay, like what, if you started freelancing, or at least tried, and you understand you have to reach out to clients, then I'd get a specific question about like, okay, my cold email isn't doing very well. Oh, my cold DMs aren't doing very well. And then we can dig into that problem and help you overcome that. But if you haven't started freelancing, then it'd be difficult to help. And the way, like the how is you learning with YouTube courses, et cetera, et cetera. I need to check and see if movers. Okay. You said Danco is a pen name. How did you do that and grow it so well? That's a loaded question in terms of how grow it so well. I mean, in terms of growing it, it's been 4 years of, as I said, writing and learning every single day and letting that compound and solving problems that come up along the way. Like if I'm not growing, then it's like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I need to make my content better or product better, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of like the story behind the name, all I remember is creating it as a lifeguard in the break room when I was like 16 in high school, like at my first job. And it was my Instagram handle, like DDanco, and I thought it was cool. And then I just kept it the entire time. And eventually when I started on Twitter or started like actually getting serious about this stuff, I'm like, Danco sounds cool. I'll just use that. Want to start my personal brand, and my interests are health, nutrition, conscious living, parenting, growth mindset. My main struggle is that most creators with those interests are showing a lot of video content of their daily lives, their homes, kids. I don't feel comfortable doing that, but I feel that without that, it'll be hard to stand out. Any advice? Get on Twitter, because you won't see any vlogs. And there are plenty of creators talking about this stuff. You just have to find them, which is somewhat difficult with Twitter. But if you follow like people that I follow and people that they follow, and you look in the comments to see who you would want to follow, you'll eventually like find the accounts that you really resonate with. It does take a bit of time. You can't search them all in one day. Well, that's the main thing. That your main struggle is you seeing those creators, because those are the creators that you expose yourself to and you're following right now. If you're following other creators on something like Twitter, where it's not very video heavy, then you'd gain more inspiration on how you can actually start doing that. You've mentioned before about hunting in the morning, but you said that in the beginning it's important to do daily education first thing in the morning. That's hunting. What approach do you recommend when you're starting out? I'd recommend education, like researching something with intention, either YouTube or course or book or whatever it may be, something that will equip you, something that allows you to discover or like hunt, like you're hunting for information that you can apply as a tool to achieve the goal that you have. That's dopamine. So that's the main thing, is education every single morning, whether it be on a walk, go on a 30-minute walk and throw on a 30 to 60-minute YouTube lecture or podcast and start there. Yes, the call will be recorded. All right. Joey answered one quick. Block the haters. Yep. You will get haters. This is a good one from Marina. In your opinion, is it better to go for quantity versus deep quality when starting posting on social media, meaning use a lot of shallow dating advice and sprinkle deep, thoughtful content in between, or focus on deeper, longer posts but have less of those? It depends on if you really think it's helpful. Like sometimes the shallow dating advice, it can be helpful for specific people, and it will definitely get more engagement. But at the same time, don't think that you can't position deep and thoughtful content as something that will get a lot of engagement, right? And it doesn't always have to be like shallow dating or whatever advice that gets a lot of engagement. Like that's just not the case. And that's the main creative problem that you're always trying to solve with your content is, how do I take this complex problem or thought or deep thought and make it understandable and impactful to the average person? How do I word it that way without any of the like complex language that I feel so compelled to use because I want to sound so smart? How do I make it actually impactful to people? And then post that and then get better at doing it with time. Advice for building a personal brand on Instagram versus Twitter. It's really the same thing in my eyes. You have content, you have brand. You need to get eyes on that content through replies, comments, story shares, whatever it may be. You do that consistently enough, and if your content is good enough to turn viewers into followers from your content being spread, then the brand will grow. Of course, like the content style is different. You're going to have to test that a bit. Like if you just, like on Twitter, if you have a tweet that has like the hook, the body, the sinker, and it just flows really well, and then you go on Instagram and you post like a shirtless selfie and it's like Sunday vibe, not the same thing. Like there's vast difference in the value being delivered there. And so this is why I like just writing on Instagram. I just copy and paste my tweets into a little template in Figma or Canva and I post it on there, and it does the same thing because it captures attentions, it delivers value on attention, and potentially converts into followers, which is what will get people to share your content more and get people to follow from the content you shared. Ooh, what are the best no BS resources to learn the fundamentals of psychology and marketing? Influence by Robert Cialdini. Cashvertising by Drew Eric Whitman, even though that one's a bit cringe. Just take the principles from it. I think it's a good read. This is also a cringe book, but Digital Millionaire Secrets by Dan Henry. I believe that's the name. I've never read. Joey, I know you recommend like Traffic Secrets. Or is it?
I recommend Expert Secrets. I haven't read Traffic Secrets yet.
Okay, so Expert Secrets. What's like another marketing or sales book? Honestly, those are like good.
Fanatical Prospecting and Virtual Selling. Those are both by Blount. I'll put his name in the chat. I'll put both of those in the chat, but those are good.
One of my interests is learning Linux, virtualization, and networking in order to break into text. I think you mean tech. I want to document my journey as a free course based on certifications. Can it be done through lessons and threads? Yeah, 100%. I think that'd be a great way to grow. Just make sure that it's like you're introducing people, like you're teaching from that beginner level and you're having some form of persuasion in there where you're talking about the problems that people face and the benefits they can get from it to an audience that has no idea what tech or any of this is, right? So if you want to teach Linux, you need to act like you're approaching an average guy on the street and you're trying to convince them as to why Linux is a good thing that they should use before diving into the lesson that you're going to give. So it's like, I'm thinking of programming in general, and all the marketing around that is if you want to get a job without a degree or get a high paying job without a degree, if you want to learn a skill that pays 6 figures or something like that, then you need to learn React. Here's part 1 of my beginner series on React, something like that. You know what I mean? So just frame it that way where you're not starting where it's like, here's an intro to Linux part 1 and then going into it. You need to be a bit persuasive as to why they should care. In your opinion and experience, what is the best performing Instagram content? Reels, quotes, carousels? It varies, honestly. I've had carousels get 140,000 likes, I think, if not more. I've had posts get that much. I've had reels get more than that. And now reels are my least high performing right now. Posts are doing better. Carousels are doing well again. It's really just like I incorporate them all. Like I do carousel once a week. I do single image posts like 2 times a week. I do reels 1 time a week. I actually do carousels 2 times a week. I just make sure I have good ideas on all of them because the idea is going to the execution of the idea is what's going to make it the most high performing. It's not dependent. Like Instagram may favor reels or something else over another, but if I make a post and it's just a 1-sentence tweet, that could do better than someone with the same amount of followers as me that posts a reel with a lesser idea. So you have to focus on idea, content, writing, etc., and paying attention to what does good and what does bad in your brand over time. Okay, it's 12:03. I'll do one more. Okay. Joey, is there a good one that everyone should be informed on? Why do I look so red?
I've seen a few questions around limiting beliefs about there's too much competition, Twitter's too saturated, things like that. So maybe you can speak to that.
Stop, guys.
90% of your competition are going to quit. So
yeah, or they're not going to start. Like it's all the cliche stuff is true. Like you just what's the other option? Like if this is what you really want to do, like if you really want to do YouTube or whatever, sell what you want, or you see this as a path to get there, like if you don't make that work, what's the other option? Like the saturated job market, the saturated anything that allows people to utilize it. Sorry, guys. I actually have to answer this. Technically, we're 2 hours in, so I'm allowed to do this. Not good. Not good news. Okay, one more question. Can you do this on Facebook? Yes. Facebook, social media is social media. All the platforms are the same. They have content, brand, a share mechanism to get eyes on your content. All right, I'm trying to find one more. Do you have one, Joey?
No, not really.
Well, that was a slow way to end a call. Sorry for taking a call on it, but I had to. I need to. Who's the movers? One of them broke their ankle.
Oh.
So I'm going to deal with that right now. and try to move some stuff over.
Cool.
All right. Yep. The recording will be up. I appreciate you guys coming. I guess last question from Jay. I hate social media. Any advice? Change what you're following on social media so that you don't hate it. And I mean, like, if you want to do things on, like, if you don't want to do anything on social media, then delete it. If you want to do something on social media, then, like, you have to understand that a lot of people love it, and that the difference between the people who love it and you who hates it is just the perspective and people they follow and mindset surrounding that. And you can change that in yourself and see great results with doing things with social media. Okay, last one. Everyone tells you to choose one platform and build on it before switching to another. What would you recommend? I'd recommend that, like, as long as it doesn't take away. I'd recommend building on one and then gradually branching out to other platforms. But at the same time, if you can cross post to, like, everywhere, then I don't see a huge problem with it. Like, if it doesn't take more than like 30 minutes out of your day to copy and paste every platform, then yeah. The main thing that you have to focus on is, like, focusing your growth efforts on one platform. Like, I don't see it plausible to engage on Twitter with other people and network and share each other's content and then do the same thing on Instagram and LinkedIn, etc. Like, grow on one until growth is to the point where you don't need to spend as much time on growth, and then put your growth efforts elsewhere, like Instagram, and then continue going on from there. Adele, do we need to tweak it for each platform? You can if you want. I don't. Different audiences and different preferences for where people want to consume your content. Okay. All right. We're out. Thank you guys for coming. The call will be uploaded shortly. I'd say within the next few hours. I need to deal with this mover stuff quick, but it will be uploaded. You'll be sent an email. Thank you guys again. See you on Thursday at the same time. I'll send out emails like I did today, so you have the link to the call. All right. Later, guys. Later, Joey.
See y'all.